Hey, Gamecock fans, welcome back to Alumni Game, the spooky version. It is Cocktober, more realistically October, because the Cocks aren't really keeping it together. So we wanted to have some fun. Here is your host, Jason Voorhees. No, I'm Michael Ritchie, class of '06. The guy in the bag over there, that's Sam Niedermeyer, class of '06. And the other
Anchor
guy rocking the
Dan.
nice skull mask, that's John Buster Clarkson, class of '02. Coming back to you with another episode of Alumni Game, spooky style. And, deep breath, South Carolina fans, because, look, I feel a lot better after that Alabama game. I feel like we played way better, respectively. I know we lost at home. I know it's not the result that we wanted. I know we really thought we had it. But I'm much more encouraged by what's going on here, right? I'm much more on like full lit pumpkin mode instead of saggy old pumpkin mode. And here I got my pumpkin emojis floating around me for real October. But tonight we're going to do three things. We're going to recap that Alabama game, which, could hurt a little bit, but which game hasn't hurt lately. Second, it's spooky season, so we're going to play a little game. Who has it worse? And we're going to talk a little bit about some SEC teams like the Gamecocks that are kind of flailing through this season. And then we're going to get into this preview for Ole Miss and what needs to happen to stop the bleeding, to sort of shift things to the future, getting the Gamecocks on the up and up, and maybe even towards a win. We'll talk about it. Fellas, how we doing?
Hmm.
Feeling,
Who wants to
feeling,
answer?
Great masks, by the way. Loving this.
Dia de los Muertos, Day of the Dead. I guess maybe after this weekend, I felt like I was walking amongst the dead because, the fact that we were very close to a dub. We managed to snatch defeat out of the jaws of victory with some of our decision making at the end of the game. You nailed it, Mike. There was a lot of positives that came out of it. I am
Yeah.
not a moral victory type of fella, but I also am objectively and reasonably and logically uh,
Unbiased.
unbiased. And I know when I see things that are being done well, um, as kind of what we talked about in our little meeting before this. We were looking at the fact that our defense played very well, stopped a high-powered Ty Simpson, who has been like going off since before this game. Ryan Williams, one of the best freshman wide receivers. Everybody talked about him in the preseason as being, potentially a Blitnikoff winner and different things like that. Kind of, curb their dynamic and explosive playmaking ability with our defense. On offense, this is what Gamecock Nation probably talked about since Saturday afternoon, early evening, was the offense looked night and day better. And by that, I think we said this last week. They were like, if we see a difference in offense, we were saying, no, Mike Shula's not calling plays. Like, this is a whole different thing. Shane's doing this. What I think I know is that Shula, there was a shot of him on the sideline that he did have a headset on. He did have his play sheet in his hand, things like that. But I really think that during prep week, this past week, Shane made it a point to tell him and the rest of the offensive coaching staff was, Norris doesn't need to be in the pocket. He doesn't need to be a statue in the pocket. He needs to move around the field, get the ball out quick to playmakers. That's what Beamer said. If that's what Beamer said, that's what they did Saturday. Will this happen over the next couple of weeks? We don't know, but at least for this game, we saw what happens when you do play to the strengths of your generational quarterback. You do play to the strengths of your playmakers on offense. You do play against the weaknesses of your O-line. Our O-line, again, actually blocked pretty well.
Yeah.
Did not have the same shoot yourself on the foot false start penalties that we've seen in the past. The holding call on Tree Babalade on Lenoir's end zone run was pure BS. So the refs obviously screwed us out of that. They obviously screwed us out of the many holding calls that can easily be seen on any replay of the game against Dylan Stewart. So, that's that. That's not the moral victory, but that's what you can say that, okay, I see this improvement. Let's carry this over
Yes.
this upcoming week. So, yeah.
We'll get into some of those numbers. I have something to say about some of that. But we got to get to this angry fan over here. This is such a great costume. If you can't read it there, it says angry fan on the bag. Obviously, he's sitting in the stands, a big Beamer Ball fan. But that is Sam Niedermeyer, class of 06, bringing it to us live, I guess, from the stands.
Listen, you all can pat yourselves on the back for watching a good team play well and this and that, but you know what? It is absolutely an emergency code red going on right here at Williams-Brice Stadium. Look at this. Look at this. Only one fan is here. We are the angry fan. I'm representing the angry fans now. We are terrible. This team is awful. 5 losses in the SEC. Burn it all down. Everybody in the chats and the groups and all the forums, fire Shula, fire Beamer, burn it all down. This team stinks. We're going to get murdered by Ole Miss. I am the angry fan, and I'm representing everyone in Columbia, South Carolina. Listen, I have spent $0 on this team on tickets. I expect much more when I see this product on the field. When I'm tuning in on Saturday on an ABC and I'm drinking my beer and I'm enjoying my Saturday afternoon, I expect to see a great game, which I saw was a great game. But you're going to sit here and tell me we lose at home. All these fans are getting ready to charge the field, and then guess what happens? 20 years of futility, dropping the ball, having a fumble with 35 seconds left, what Lenora Sellers does. We have a Heisman candidate. We got Defensive Player of the Year, and we can't do anything with it. We're 3-5. This team stinks. Burn it all down. I am the angry fan.
All right. Well,
It's fun.
Not necessarily going to agree with all that, but you're entitled to your opinion. And I love calling him Schuler. That's kind of awesome. Don't even respect him enough to get his name right. That's great. Look, I mean, this happens. I get it. I somewhat felt the same way at first. I sort of came back to, you mentioned that fumble from Lenora. So I was like, he's our best player. If that's going to happen, that's going to happen. I don't know what to do about it, you know? And I just kind of felt like at least it wasn't someone else. At least it wasn't like him just flipping the ball. It was really a guy ripping in the pile. You know, I'm with you there, though, that just didn't go our way. Now,
in all seriousness, it was a terrific game. I was happy to see a lot of things.
I mean, that was fun.
Defense played great, too. The defense did play amazing.
Defense was outstanding.
Outstanding again.
The thing is if when we talk about like what went right, what went wrong, let's say we do all that. The biggest thing that went wrong was closing out the game. We did everything right until closing out the game. The 2 biggest things that went wrong was Mike Shula reverting back to his old way. So when we had the ball, we had the lead, we were back on our 20-yard line. And, what does he do? He run up the middle, 0 yards. And here's the thing. I get you want to burn some clock, but you can't go back to the thing that we were frustrated with the entire season. And then when Lenore's fumbles, you're asking him to run up the middle after playing an entire game when you know they were stacking 8-9 in the box, and you know that they're looking to try to create a turnover to get the ball back, to get in a position to take over the game. And that's what they did. You watch the replay, he's sitting there and he's actually holding onto the ball.
He's got it pretty good. Dude's just ripping and ripping.
Good defensive play.
There was 2 or 3 guys
good defensive
ripping.
play.
And so that's the thing is the 2 biggest issues that were wrong was Mike Shula, and there was a couple other plays throughout the game where he kind of reverted back to his old ways, where it was almost like he got shell-shocked that the offense was working and kind of freaked out and just kind of went back to the things
kind
that
of
he's so
reverted back
comfortable
to
with
certain
that are
behavior.
not good for us. And then 2, I get where Beamer was like, if they score or, if they get a first down here, score. But here's the thing. You should have gone for 2 after that last touchdown because you would have gone up by 9 points, which is a 2-score game.
Yeah.
And if you missed, you were still up by a touchdown. Getting the extra point doesn't really help you there. So getting the 2-point conversion either keeps you the same or it gives you even a bigger advantage. It's like almost it's not even a lose-lose, it's not even a win-lose. It's like a win or stay neutral.
That's a good point.
That's a good point.
So 2, after that, if you wanted to give up the touchdown to him so you can get some time on the clock, the time left was 35 seconds. And then you should have told our guys, let them kick it out of bounds instead of trying to bring it out, because that's going to take time off the clock. Whether you take it out to the 20 or not, you're still in the same position, but you're 2 or 3 seconds less. And then after that, you're not playing to get into field goal. You throw an underneath pass that's not even to the first down, and you're throwing to the middle of the field when you have 0 timeouts and you only have 35 seconds to clock. There should have been better management at the end of the game by Beamer, and there should have been more dynamic calls than just run up the middle to try to burn out the clock, because you do that, you put yourself in a risky situation, especially when you're deep in your own territory. Those 2 things cost the game for us. If we did everything that we did the first 3 quarters on those last 2 possessions, we would have came out with a dub.
Yeah, I was exactly going to start pointing to that, Buster, that from what you said. Basically, I mean, look, Sam and the Angry Fan have a good point about a lot of it. But truthfully, 3 quarters of really good football, fourth quarter, and specifically those 2 drives, not. So for me, that's kind of okay, as opposed to the week before, or the week before that, where it just felt like we were all over the place and I couldn't even pick a quarter that was great. It was really just certain plays or drives. This felt way more consistent. I have not been able to say that we can improve coming out of half. It felt like we did. It just felt like we freaked out a bit in the fourth quarter. We weren't ready to beat Alabama. We didn't feel like we deserved it, and we didn't make decisions that are good football decisions to do that. But
I also like the heads up play by Sweat to not tackle the guy and let him in for the touchdown.
Totally.
I was
a lot of heads up plays by a lot of guys.
That's a really quick heads up play.
Couple of things here, just so we can reset for people who didn't see the whole thing or just where we're at. Final score, Alabama 29, South Carolina 22, so we only lose by that touchdown. Buster was talking about that 2-point, how that kind of changes that setup. And, a lot of the keys that Coach goes for, we did succeed in. We were good on fourth down. We had more yards than them total. We had less penalties than them total. The turnover battle was essentially even because of that last fumble, but they actually had 2 fumbles lost, and we threw a pick. So it kind of evens out there. But Coach's other big key is winning the fourth quarter. We did not do that. They scored 15 points in the fourth quarter. We only scored 7. So we admittedly did not. We won the third quarter where we scored 9 and they only scored nothing, but still. And then the only other really fun, positive family thing I want to point out is Lenoris being able to throw passes to his brother. That felt pretty awesome.
Yeah.
And
did it feel forced a little bit?
Making fun of his brother, how small he is and how little he is, and I was like, part of me was like, that's great, you're giving him flowers and he's doing stuff, but you're also kind of making fun of him that he's so small. Which was kind of,
a lot of people were wondering about that, but I don't know if we ever mentioned it in our kind of preseason shows, but Jaden, I think, is one of the more talented receivers. Obviously, we got a bunch of talented receivers that came in. We talked about that. There's our episode linked somewhere up or down, left or right, about our wide receivers. Jaden was an X factor because he is very dynamic and he carries the same athleticism as his brother. Yes, he's a little bit more on the slight side, but I'm glad he got in because he can be an explosive, dynamic player in that position. And because he played quarterback, you could see him come into those packages that are unique, that can take advantage of him
helping his brother out.
Yeah.
So I agree with all that. I agree with all that. For sure.
I guess the final thing for me, and so to finish my part of the recap for this Alabama loss was,
please do.
Everything is still on the table that we said last week. I still think that the offensive side of the ball, from a coaching standpoint, needs to be revisited at the end of the year. I don't think Shula needs to be retained. Whoever comes in, they can bring in their own staff. I do like Mike Fury as wide receiver coach, and Sean Elliott has shown that he can improve the offensive line within these last 2 weeks. If you can keep them, great. If not, that's fine. We need to take over, and it doesn't matter what happens from here on out. If it took us up until game 8 to improve our offense, that means that the offensive side of the ball needs to go for the coaching staff. 2, yes, this has not been a great season for us, and we're going to talk about that because one of our next segments that we had talked about in our pre-show was
preamble.
Who has it worse. We're going to get to that, but that doesn't necessarily mean that we can, we are disappointed in having 5 losses when we thought we were in a playoff team. But there are goals still on the table that can make us feel good about going into next year. One of them is to get bowl eligible and get to a respectable bowl.
Oh, totally.
And then, the idea is that to beat Clemson And then there is the opportunity with how things are going. And, I may mention this, a little sneak peek,
Yeah.
but we may be able to finish with a better record and a better season than
Best
Clemson.
in-state record.
For that,
Just
that's
beat 'em,
something
baby.
to hang your hat on as far as a Gamecock fan. If you find a bunch of negatives in what happened this year, then find some positives in the fact that there's a potential that we could finish out the season better than our rival
Yeah,
and
nice.
get the dub. So
It's something.
That's my recap. Look good. If we played the entire season like we played the first three quarters, we'd probably only have one loss on the record. But we played like what we saw most in the fourth quarter, especially in the last 2 minutes of the game. We've played like that most of the season on offense, and that's why we're sitting at 3-5 and 1-5 in the
1-5 in the
SEC.
Doing the math, like thinking through the math.
Yeah.
No,
It's just
I'm with
play
you.
calling to not lose the game is what it is versus play calling
I'm
to win.
with you, Buster. I think a lot of the same things I would just toss in. The running game did look better. I feel like the more we use Fuller, the more I like him. Faison seems to be a better part of things. Attaway doesn't seem quite as evolved anymore, but okay. I mean, he's done after this year anyways, so that's probably okay. But I do think it could be used more effectively. Yeah. Like that run from Sellers where he fumbles, like maybe that could have been Fuller instead or something a little more RPO, to make you think Sellers is going to do it and they're all going for the strip, but then it's not and it's Fuller instead, something like that. A little more intelligence from Shula.
Actually, what I would like to see in something like that? The old Tim Tebow Florida pop pass where he takes in the shotgun like he's going to run up the middle because everybody expects Lenore to do that. He stops, and then you have Mo Brown or Jordan Dingle or somebody out and just kind of.
Yeah, I'd like to see the tight ends more involved. Something like that feels like that's on the coaches, and they're not doing that.
Yeah,
so
that would be
maybe
way
that's too much to ask from Schuler.
Way too creative for Schuler.
Yeah, way too creative.
I'd like to see Razul Faison not, bobble the ball on the sideline.
I know some of the.
I'd like to see that too.
There's a lot of that goes into this. You're right. I feel like I said it last week, and we talked about it. That there's things that happen here that makes you not want to do certain things with the offense. That includes like Lenore's under center and weird handoffs and stuff they have in practice. But just to recap, because we're almost done with Alabama here, running game looked better. Defense still looking very, very good. Obviously some play calling near the end, but some smart plays. Offense still has a ways to go. And a great note from Sam here just about how the national reaction, right? That people are still keying on that Lenoris is who he is and is probably going to be able to do it at the NFL level when he goes there, whenever that does happen. But that our offense is putting too heavy a load on him to do too much, and that's why he's failing. He's got too many things, X's and O's and Z's and Y's to think about, and he's got to do it all. And how many people are really helping him out besides his brother and maybe a running back or two, Yeah. So that's kind of a big thing. But, the positives being that the front seven, the defense, the running game improving. And like Buster said, those improvements. Are those moral victories? Yeah. Is that going to, please an angry fan? No. But I do think it gets us off of the hot seat for Beamer and any talk of any other change, right? Anything else here, guys, before we kind of put Alabama away and move on to our game?
I think that was it.
Fun game.
I think we summed it up pretty well. Like that I think, these next 4 games, if we can show the same promise, this not be a fluke, and if anything can be learned by the coaches from this game is if you do what you just did this past week and then be able to finish out through the fourth quarter, then you can get these last couple of games, get us bowl eligible. We beat Clemson when we salvaged a season that looked like it was, this season's still a failure based on expectations, but we can salvage it from going all the way down in the toilet. Maybe we just let it sit in the bowl overnight or something.
And that's a great segue.
I'd like to, before we'll get to that in a second. I know.
Yeah, it's fine. It's fine.
How about I want to shout out the announcing crew that they said multiple times how tough it was for Alabama to play 4 straight ranked opponents. It was really, really tough, and they just ignored the fact that we're playing 5 top 10 opponents in a row. But that's okay. That's okay. Yeah. Great job, Alabama. 4 straight ranked opponents. That was really, really a really tough schedule. No one, especially not South Carolina this year, is playing a tougher schedule right now.
Yeah, sure. Speaking of who has a tough schedule, let's get into who has it worse. I want to play a game. It is spooky season. I got my soft friend here. Let's see if you can see him here. He wants to play a game. Who has it worse in the SEC, right? The bottom of the SEC has got some very underachieving teams. And shocker, it's not Vandy. Vandy overachieving and almost unanimously everyone's like, they're going to make the playoff. Watch out for them towards the SEC championship. Good for them. That's great. But we're not here for that. We are doing a little keeping up with the Joneses here to try and compare what's going on with SC to some other teams. And this is kind of some real talk, but, we're having some fun with it. The Gamecocks are bleeding. They're not alone. Let's rank some of this and sort of pick our poison. Who has it worse sort of right now and why? Sammy boy, I know you're angry. I know you're a fan. Oh, there it is coming back. And a lot of reasons this is your segment. So how do you want to kick this off?
Angry fan says South Carolina has it worse because of Shane Beamer and the Mike Schuler and the entire staff right there. But no. Not so fast, my friend. Not so fast. Guys, did you hear there's a new episode? There's going to be a new season of True Detective.
In New Orleans.
Yeah, with the exact same, with Woody Harrelson.
Woody.
Love
Woody.
Hey.
Oh, man, those commercials are hilarious with those guys.
Mm-hmm.
I did not hear about that. What are they going to be investigating?
So there's a new body.
In the
Brian Kelly. Yes, that's right. Brian Kelly has been off by LSU. So I got to say, they got it worse, right? They had top 10 expectations. They had Nussmeier, who's supposed to be this Heisman quarterback, coming in. They played in Clemson. We had to sit there for 20 minutes and watch Clemson take the bus around their stadium for 20 minutes around their stadium, which they could have just walked. And they made this big deal, and LSU comes out swinging and has a big win. And they have just shit the bed right there. So I got to say, LSU fans are probably happy now that Brian Kelly's gone. No questions asked. But 5-3 so far. Had some tough losses. They just lost to, I think they got, who they just lose to? Was it Oklahoma a couple weeks ago where Brian Kelly lost the job? Who did they lose to?
Yeah, it was Oklahoma. Because they were up big, and then Oklahoma came back and destroyed them in the third and fourth quarter.
Yeah.
Well, the only thing I would say, Sam, is at least they know they got the funeral costs covered. I mean, I heard something like a $54 million buyout.
Yeah. You know what? They probably got some of that oil money down there or something. But no, I'm gonna say money. Go Tigers. They're feeling worse right now.
No, it's good. Look, hey, I'm with you there. Things are definitely bad in the Bayou. I mean, LSU is a storied program. Brian Kelly was a big hire. That's a big buyout. To do it mid-season is pretty crazy. I don't think South Carolina is there. I know there has been some talk about Beamer and obviously Schuler that we've been talking about. I don't think we're there anymore. I think Gamecock fans have stepped off of that. I think they should. I do think if there's someone to continue leading us, it's Beamer, and that those changes will get made. And then to Buster's point, they have been made a little bit. I think certain areas we said must be improved. The must improves have improved. Was it a must win against Alabama? No. Did we come close, and does that hurt? Yeah, but it hurts, and we know that as a Gamecock fan. So I'm okay with all that. I would pivot to even more money, potentially even bigger storied program that has only recently entered the SEC, and I would say Texas has it worse than anybody.
Yeah. Another McConaughey reference here.
Not even from a coaching standpoint, but Arch is not who we thought he was, and he's getting paid more NIL money than anyone. That feels like wasted money, right? Mm-hmm. And I haven't even seen him in commercials, so when they say NIL money, it feels like they're just shoving him money, and he doesn't even have to do much for it. I don't think he is who we thought he was, and I think the same cannot be said for South Carolina. That money is not there. Those expectations that were on Texas are not there, and quarterback-wise, Lenoris is still generally who we thought he was. He just hasn't been given the tools around him. He hasn't been given the right OC. He's been asked to do too much, stuff like that. You can't say any of those things about Arch, to my knowledge, from what I've seen.
Yeah.
Other than their coach seems to be focused on other things. I saw something saying he was letting NFL teams know that he's interested in the NFL. Yeah, great. I'm interested in going to the moon too, but not going.
Texas made their big marquee win against Mississippi State a big deal this weekend. So Yeah. Good job.
I mean, look,
good job.
If he does turn it around a bit and they get some wins, fine.
Preseason number one, by the way. Preseason number one.
That is true.
Yeah,
preseason
like
number one.
unanimously preseason number one. Getting embarrassed. Ohio State is way better. There are a lot of other teams that are way better. I don't think it's like a fireable offense for Texas to fire their coach. I am surprised at what LSU has done a little bit, but yeah, I think both those programs are worse off than us. And I would take disagreements to that and argue that a little bit. I wouldn't stand in front of South Carolina in front of a shooting squad and say like I put my life on the line for it, but I think when you get down to that, I think you can see that those programs were a lot more favored. Now there are definitely other teams in the SEC who have underperformed, but I just think for me, when you throw in how much money is flying around with Texas and those preseason expectations, I mean, for all the preseason pundits and the rankers to have it wrong there, it's one thing to be wrong about South Carolina creeping up into the top 10. It's another thing to be wrong about number one and to have no.
Well, the other thing too is, and the reason why I like y'all's picks for who has it worst is the storyline is so much more significant. So, if you look at LSU, if you're basing this off of the storylines with, okay, Garrett Nussmeier, and he was, not necessarily a Heisman favorite, but he was in the Heisman talk. Like he was part of that list that gets the odds on winning.
Yeah, you could bet on him as a Heisman, yeah.
But, from the LSU point, the significant storyline was that Brian Kelly underachieved as a coach. And now you're hearing stories about him as a person, arrogant.
Ex-players hate him.
Exactly. And a lot of national level media that has covered him either for his time at Notre Dame to now at LSU have seen some of the kind of byproducts of his arrogance and aloofness and some of the other issues that maybe even some narcissism. Who knows? I don't know him that much, but that's a significant storyline. And then on the opposite end is Texas, where you do have a coach who I actually like, who I've heard is fairly beloved by a lot of people in Steve Sarkisian, because he was a great guy. He went through that rough patch for him when he was at Southern Cal, and did have an addiction issue, and he got sober. That's a great story to tell. I've always loved those kind of stories. Redemption arc, going to Alabama to be the OC, gets the job at Texas. And by all accounts, from the national level media, people like him. Well, the underachievement came from the players and relying on a name rather than a skill-based position in Arch Manning and the QB. So it's like a tale of two opposites. You have one program that put all their money and bells and whistles into the coach who underachieved, who's an asshole. And then the other one that put all their money and bells and whistles in a guy that's last name is Manning, that actually has a coach that people do like, who I do think. So, to me, the trajectory is that LSU may be falling off because it is a job that is, it's a good job. LSU is a marketable product. They do have money. But
for me in the SEC, it's LSU and Alabama are the two biggest.
To me, the hard part about LSU and getting into coaches, you're going to have to fix what Brian Kelly destroyed there. Whereas Sark, you don't have to do that much. Sark, all he has to do is, whether Arch leaves and transfer or goes to the NFL or whatever the case may be, you can reset and bring in the players, and you can still coach to moderate success by the next year. I think the ceiling is higher and an easier reach for Texas than LSU at this point. So that to me are the two fun storylines.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I think recruiting seems easier with Texas because you haven't damaged the program that much and you can just blame it on a player. But like you said, at LSU, it's a culture thing. You have to fix everything he's done. Not only that, but you're down $54 million that came from within the program, ostensibly. Like, I mean, we don't always talk about where all that money comes from. We're not financial.
They just write those checks. That money doesn't mean anything.
Right. But as opposed to like when people like Nick Saban are out there talking about NIL ruining everything, they're basically talking about Texas, right? Because Texas has offered more money in NIL than anyone.
It's funny when coaches talk about NIL ruining stuff, and then you hear about $54 million buyouts. Like, come on. Like, don't.
Yeah,
Yeah, right.
Let's
And
call a spade
Saban made a lot
here.
of money as Alabama
Right.
coach too.
Do
So,
you know what I
yeah.
mean? Like, come on, let's get past
So
this.
maybe it's all relative. Paying a coach that much is the same as paying a player. But I feel what Buster's saying. It's not so much that the coach has instituted things or done things that he should get fired, and that is not what has happened to Sarkisian. Where with Kelly, he's arguably like not a great human being,
Yeah.
and also he did these things, and that's why LSU had to do what they had to do.
People
Right.
go
Yeah.
to bat. People go to bat for Sarks. No one's stepping
Yeah.
up for Brian
Yeah,
Kelly.
no one's
no, not at all. So, but with that being said, then it comes who has it worse for me, and you guys were like, oh, SEC. We pretty much covered it, and the fact that you two have storylines that are significant from a national level, that is something to follow, especially for us and for our listeners that you want to pay attention to get your fix in for college football stuff. So I picked one that doesn't necessarily have a storyline that would be fun like that, but it's fun for us because I'm going outside of the SEC because who has it worse than us? Our rivals in the upstate, Clemson
Ooh.
University. They have it worse.
Shocker.
So if you look, they are currently 3-4 overall, 2-3 in their conference. You're like, man, they got 4 losses. They're under 500. Yeah, and you know what? Out of those 4 losses, only one of them was against a ranked team. And that was Georgia Tech. The other losses were LSU, who we just talked about, that beat them in the beginning there, and then SMU, Southern Methodist, who
Did they just lose last weekend?
year.
SMU, I think.
Yeah. So 2 weekends ago, they had a bye this past week.
So here's a question, because I would tend to agree with you,
Syracuse.
Buster. But do you think we said what happened to Brian Kelly, and I think that's a big reason why Sam, chose who he chose with the Tigers, because that does all look really bad. Much like Penn State, right? I mean, Penn State's probably right there. That would be the only other one I thought you might have picked.
Yeah. That's a good one, Mike.
I mean, look, all of these are there. And then just to round it out, and I want to get back to Clemson right away, but just because we're leaving the SEC, Florida and Kentucky were both options here. Kentucky, I don't think, because they,
they didn't have the expectations.
Well, their basketball also sucks too. So now it's like, okay, what are they?
Right, that's probably what it is, right? Like
and
for
Florida
us,
didn't
it was
have
bad that baseball and basketball was as bad as it was.
Yeah, and I think Florida didn't have a lot of expectations because they were kind of on the way out with Billy Napier even from last year.
Yeah.
Top 20 preseason.
But that may be why Florida is one of the worst, because that's a move they should have done last year, and they let it go over.
I think they were trying to rely on the fact that maybe.
And that's a big seat.
So.
Really, if I had to, I would say, yeah, Alabama, LSU, Florida. Those feel like the biggest. I mean, obviously Georgia too, I think, is maybe passing Florida at this point in terms of the best seat available in the SEC. But that could change with the tide. I mean. And I don't mean the Crimson Tide. Ole Miss gets over a couple hurdles. They something like Lane Kiffin just finally beat his first top 10 SEC team or something like that. He didn't really have wins against ranked opponents, so he's chipping away at stuff. Alabama could get back there. Obviously, Vandy is threatening now. Georgia could get back there. There's a lot of good in the SEC, but in terms of this, I'm with you, Buster. I've been wondering if Clemson might fire their coach any 1 week.
Well, he's not going to. Dabo is not going anywhere, only because he bought himself pretty much not necessarily a lifetime contract, but he bought himself a significant grace period because he did bring them 2 national championships in the last decade. The problem is,
never did that.
Kind of like what we talked about with Texas and LSU, there was high expectations. There were pundits that said that they were the second best team to win the national championship outside of Texas and some people, Ohio State, whatever. They were pretty much put in the top 3 coming into the season. Cade Klubnik, 5-star quarterback. He was supposed to be the salve after the DJ Uiagalelei experiment went south. They were supposed to bring back a great defense. And by all accounts, I think the defense is still pretty solid. And then they spent all this money to get Garrett Riley last year. So all this expectation that they were going to return back to what they were under Trevor Lawrence and Deshaun Watson. And everybody thought that they were going to do it. And they look pedestrian on offense. They don't have a strong running game. Cade Klubnik looks terrible. I mean, you look at we talk about these quarterbacks from Arch to Garrett Nussmeier to Lenorith, all those guys that were in that list of Heisman hopefuls. Cade was in that list, and he is. I mean, he's terrible. Like, and then it's not just because he has a bad offensive line. I think they have actually a pretty decent offensive line. He does have, some receivers. Although I think Bryant Wesco is out injured, but they don't have a strong run game. So if you're looking at expectations, they've fallen off, and especially if you look at the fact that if we're looking at our five losses are against teams that are ranked in the top 10. Right. Each one of them at some point was in the top 10 and potentially even the top 5. The only team that they lost to that's in that conversation is Georgia Tech, who just now is in the top 8.
Getting there.
Yeah. Like, that's the thing. It's not even top 25. Like, none of those other teams, your Syracuse and like LSU obviously fell out because they're terrible. SMU, those guys are not in the top 25, and they still lost to them. And they still have to go and play Florida State and number 16 Louisville and come to us to play at Williams-Brice. So, if let's say we, finish the season 6-6, there's a real sense that like one of our wins will be against Clemson. And if that's the case, and if they can't keep up with Florida State and Louisville, you're only looking at maybe 2 more wins between Duke and Furman. They could finish 5-7.
Yeah, Louisville's been good.
Yeah. And
Duke hasn't been bad either.
And that's the thing is, yes, we've fallen off, but they've fallen off more because they had a higher expectation. And then 2, their losses are against worse ranked opponents than ours. So they definitely have it worse.
Buster, this is great because, my therapist would say putting down other people isn't helping, but it's making me feel a lot better. And keeping with the theme, to quote the Saw movies, suffering, you haven't seen anything yet. Right? It's really as bad as you say it is, and we are seeing it to be for Clemson. It could get a lot worse, and it could get a lot worse at our hand. And 2 years in a row would be very, very sweet. Now, granted, it would be the cherry on top of the not best cake, but it would at least get us on a high note at the end, possibly qualify us for a bowl game against our rival, which is always fun, and spin us into a better Saw sequel for next year where we're inflicting pain on other teams instead of getting inflicted, right?
Well, the idea
but
is
I do like that.
And
I want to reset things a bit for Gamecock Nation here with something Buster said here, that all of our losses coming at top 10, at one point top 5 teams. We knew going in when we told you about this schedule and we started breaking down the schedule of how brutal a gauntlet this would be and how this could be. We didn't quite think it could be this. We thought it could be a little better than this. We thought it could be way better than this. But that's on us a little bit for hoping as fans, as opposed to a team that does not play quality opponents and douches it anyway. Yeah. That's a total.
We're playing in the varsity. Yeah. We're playing in the varsty leagues, and they're playing in the JV leagues.
We're almost playing the super varsity. We're almost like
we're playing the best of the best.
Seniors. Yeah. Like when we talked about Oklahoma as possibly the best defense in the nation, we're not just up against great teams. We might, on certain sides of the ball, we might be up against the best teams. It's almost like playing a version of Ohio State every week,
Yeah.
We've gotten into this. We had a little fun with our game. We didn't lose any limbs here. I hope everybody had fun with the Saw franchise. And if you need any spooky movie recommendations,
I got my finger cut off
as well. Well, maybe Angry Fan deserves that. But we're gonna get back into things here. Back into South Carolina. Now that we've talked about all the teams, schools that maybe should be benched. We're going to get into active situations and what we're getting into this week with Ole Miss, our next opponent.
Ole Miss.
Ranked opponent. So to that end, we got Ole Miss on Saturday, November 1st. It's going to be a later game at 7 p.m. It will be on ESPN. It's got to just be because we're playing all these ranked teams, right?
Of course.
We talked about it last week. Sam, you harped on some things there with why are they putting us, on national TV? Can't we just languish in private?
At least we gave a good game on this last weekend, so it's like different now, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it was exciting, right? I mean, look, I've been a lot of exciting games this week. I was watching Monday Night Football the other night, flipping back. Well, I had the double box with the World Series, and I got as far with the World Series as to when it was 5-5, and I was like, okay, this one has, and Otani, obviously, And I was like,
Yep.
this one has the makings, you know. And then to wake up in the morning, I didn't have a lot to do in the morning, so I actually made breakfast. Went to the beginning of Sports Center and just watched all the highlights. I don't know if you guys saw that. I know this
18
isn't really a
innings.
baseball show, but that was one of the best just games of baseball I've ever seen. And Otani, we've a lot of people want to talk about a guy in the Yankees being the best ever. Otani might really be the best player that there
Yeah,
is.
I
And it was
agree.
so funny because they asked him a question at the end, and he needs his translator or whatever. And they, Buster Olney or someone asked him all these questions, and he literally just replied really quickly and in Japanese. And it was basically like, "I want to go home and go to bed as soon as possible," is what he said. Now I feel that way sometimes with Carolina, but Sam, let's get in here. We know the stage on Saturday. Set us up with the numbers here.
Yeah, 7 p.m. on Saturday in Oxford. Ole Miss 12.5 point favorites, minus 500 on the money line. USC plus 375. The over under is
Oh, that's high.
54.5. Yeah, real high. They're thinking about it as a
Yeah.
high scoring game here. So, and we'll get into that in a second. Buster's got some good insights there on the Ole Miss defense. The model gives Ole Miss an 80% chance of winning. Ole
Okay.
Miss, number 7 in the country. They're coming off that big 34-26 win at Oklahoma. They ended up scoring having a really big second half to win that game. The Rebels are 5-0 at home. Gamecocks 0-2 on the road. Small chance of showers on Sunday night. You guys want some history?
Oh,
Some
yeah,
some
definitely. We
Ole
need
Miss
Bring it
that
South
up.
Carolina history?
history.
All right. So Ole Miss is 10-8 all time in the 18 games against South Carolina. They're 4-4 at home against South Carolina, 5-4 on the road. That doesn't add up.
Pretty even everywhere.
Oh,
No, it
I guess
doesn't
there
add
was
up.
there was a
Yeah,
bowl game. Okay, I get it. I get
fuzzy
it.
math.
There was a neutral site. Neutral site. My bad. My bad. This is straight from the Ole Miss website. So,
No, no, no. So those
well,
numbers are
this
fine. Neutral site gets you there.
um, Ole Miss has won 7 out of the last 10. They had a huge 27-3 victory last year. Their smallest margin of victory was a 30-28. 469 total points. And 20, I don't know if you guys remember that 2020 game, the COVID year. Huge game. I think it was Beamer's first year, and I think it was Lane Kiffin
Yep.
had been there like maybe 1 year or something like that. And it's a huge shootout, 59-42.
That was a great game.
Sam, let me just
Great
check one
game.
thing to make sure I heard you right. So it's 10-8. That's the record, right?
Yep.
And you said Ole Miss has won the last 7.
Excuse me, they've won 7 out of the last 10.
Okay. So then before that, it
So
was
that,
basically we were owning them before that.
yeah, I guess so. They were 3-5, 3-5 against the Gamecocks before the last 10. The last 10, they've now won they've won
Wow.
7-3.
Wow, 7 out of 10. Okay.
And they lost those games in 2008, 2009, a couple spurrier years, and then 2018.
And Lane Kiffin has been there how long?
When did he get there, Buster? 2019, 2020?
Oh, it was 18 or 19.
Yeah.
Okay. So he's had a few of
Yeah.
these already. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. And he does, I mean, for me, he feels like a big part of it. He's changed
And
the culture
also,
there. He's brought things that he learned at Alabama and other places. And he seems to be
Ole,
notching off stuff he hasn't done before. Like as far as I had it, that win against Oklahoma was his first, something like his first road win against a top 10 ranked SEC
He,
opponent, something like that.
he hasn't done. He's like 11-24 if it's top 25 teams. He hasn't been great. It's like 11-24,
yeah,
11-25, something like that. He's
very,
been
very James Franklin-esque.
maybe
And
better
I
than
mean, don't
Franklin.
get me
Maybe better
wrong,
than Franklin.
I'm not
Now,
trying to do apples to apples, but it does start to feel like not that it's saying that we want to model off of Lane Kiffin or Ole Miss, but he is starting to turn that corner in terms of notching off things he hasn't done before and bringing the program to new heights. And like, I would be remiss to say I'm not a little bit jealous of that. That if some of that could rub off on Beamer, that wouldn't be so bad.
I don't like Lane Kiffin, but man,
I don't like him either.
I love his moxie though. I gotta tell you, like if I'm like a 19-year-old kid playing for Ole Miss, I love that. I love that.
Sometimes I'm really mixed on him. I either love what he's saying or I hate it. The end of that
Same.
Oklahoma game, something was going on field, and some player was hollering from Oklahoma was like hollering at Lane, and Lane was saying something to him, and the interviewer was there, and Lane said some stuff like, "Oh, he was saying all kinds of stuff during the game." Da da da. Part of me is like a classier
Okay.
coach.
He
wouldn't
also
do
said
that.
right after that, that's probably the best defensive player in the country. So
He did.
it's not like he was like throwing shade. He basically gave him his roses too.
Right. So
Yeah.
at first I was like, what is he saying?
Yeah,
This feels
I had the
controversial.
same
This feels
reaction.
like about to go viral. Then I was like, oh, he PR'd it right
Yeah.
and knows what he's doing.
I-
But at the
I know what
same
you're saying.
time, I don't see other coaches ever doing it. I don't see Nick Saban ever doing something like that. I don't see Spurrier ever doing like classic coaches ever doing anything like that.
Lane
And
is very, very, very unique in how he does. And we saw this from when he was at Tennessee. And, the whole rumor about he told Alshon Jeffrey that if you go to South Carolina, he'd be pumping
Yeah,
gas for the rest
pumping
of your life.
gas.
I remember when he was at Tennessee and ESPN did a profile of him, and he literally knew that he was going to break the rules. And yet, what he did was he brought in a recruit into his office, like that. It happened that ESPN happened to be there when he was meeting with a recruit, which is very illegal at the time.
yeah,
You can't publicize doing that. But he knew what he was doing because he's like, oh, I'll pay the fine. I'll self-report. But what I did was just built up so much clout with this guy
Yep.
that kind of ability to know yourself and have that moxie. And also, as much as I know South Carolina fans don't like his arrogance and that moxie, I guess, but we have to respect that he is an X's and O's play caller. He wears a visor because he said, I want to take after my idol, Steve Spurrier, and the way that he could dial up plays on the field. He has done that. There's a very famous highlight when he was playing us that he called a play that obviously worked, completely destroyed us, and he threw his clipboard up in the air because he was like, oh, it's a guaranteed touchdown. You didn't even have to look at the play to see that it was a touchdown.
Yeah, he's showing up. Yeah.
Yeah, that's Lane Kiffin. And that's a tough test for us. Now, granted, we do have a good enough defense. So the ability to counter what he's able to do offensively is a obviously huge key for the game. So
yeah, that over under gets me. I want the under. I don't see that. I don't see it getting that high up at all. And I think Ole Miss might be a little surprised. If our defense, like we said, brings what they brought in the first 3 quarters, and that is the defense that we see this week, I think Lane Kiffin's got another thing coming in terms of how many points are going to go up and throwing a clipboard or doing any of that.
If that's getting close to that over under and the game is like if it's at that over under when it's not one sided and it's like close between the two teams that they've combined for that, I think that bodes well for us.
Yeah,
I mean, if it's a shootout and we're hanging, yeah. I mean, I think it depends a lot on what we talked about, Mr. Schuler, and what happens there. But again, we've seen improvements week over week, so it's not crazy to think that we can improve further in certain areas, and we've talked about that. But let's talk about that a little bit. We've talked about the stage is set. We've talked about Ole Miss and what starts with them at the top. But what does SC have to do differently this week to go at the dub, to maybe get into a shootout with Ole Miss here and maybe keep it as close and almost do what they did to Bama?
I mean, honestly, I would not want a shootout. The idea of a shootout means that you're going to have to rely on your offense to keep up with the Ole Miss offense. I think what we need to do is allow our offense to play like it did the first 3 quarters this past week, and then make sure you defend the Ole Miss offense in the sense of they're going to probably score points. They're definitely going to get yardage. But what you're going to do is if you can get them into a situation where they make a mistake and then we can take advantage of it, that allows us to then work our offense to the best that we can do right now. So I wouldn't say not necessarily a low scoring game, but I would want to avoid like a high point scoring shootout type of 59-42 like we had back in 2020.
Yeah.
I think this needs to be a slow, especially for a Lane Kiffin offense, a slow drag out, punch you in the face, throw you on the ground, get dirty, get muddy, like slow.
Yeah, it might be raining a little bit.
Pace, something like that to take them out of what they do with their offense.
Yeah, I like that. I mean, it's a little of what we said, but it's a little dirtier than that.
And I would say don't try to run any fake punts when it's 4th and 1 at your own 28, and everyone in the world knows you're going to fake punt it. Maybe don't do that. Or if it comes off of an like a false start, don't fake punt.
Thanks,
that.
Angry fan.
I think Lane Kiffin kind of knows when Shane Beamer
can sniff that out. Yeah, the visor sniffs that out.
Shane Beamer is gonna
or what I would say is maybe throw in a QB spy package where you have, let's say Jalen Kilgore as a nickel that he can play down in the box. Maybe have him be a QB spy because Trinidad Chambliss is not a Jackson Dart. He can pass like a Jackson Dart, but he's very mobile. He's very skilled. He's very athletic. Maybe kind of switch it up. And again, I'm not asking Clayton White to do anything different. He's done amazing for us. The defense has been solid all year long for us. I'm just saying that's one idea to maybe throw off their offensive game is like to have a dedicated QB spy, especially in situations where you think Trinidad is going to do something with the ball in his hands.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that. I think another big angle here, and we talked about it in the pre-show a bit, and it's in our notes, is just the mental angle here. That you did have a big game. You've had big games every week. You had a big game last week where you did play really tough for 3 quarters. Coaches made some bad decisions. Players made a couple bad plays, and you lost that game at home with a very rowdy crowd. And they even said it on the broadcast a lot, how loud we were, how much fans were bringing it. Look, everyone who was there for Gamecock Nation at that game did a great job. They did it as fans. They did everything you asked them, and they deserve to be angry fans if they want to be angry fans because they did a great job. You're not going to have any of that this week. You got to bounce back from that. You got to put that away. You got to build yourself back up, and now you got to do it on the road in the deep South. That's an ask, right? I mean, I'm not saying that Ole Miss is the hardest place to play. I don't know that it is, but they are riled up. They are beating ranked teams. They are excited. So they are going to really bring it, and you're not going to have any of the benefits that you had of last week other than maybe the weather a little bit. So that's crucial to me. And that starts with coaching, obviously building your team back up from the rubble that was the loss and shaping them into the team that you need them to be this week. But Sam, you had a couple of other keys on offense that you wanted to talk about, and specifically into Beamer ball as well, right?
I mean, I don't think there's anything complicated. Trinidad Chambliss is averaging like 313 yards passing per game when he's in. Our passing defense is good. It's number 5 in the SEC. The total defense is number 5 in the SEC, and passing defense is number 3. You just gotta find when we're on offense, you gotta find an identity, right? Close drives, like you said, respond mentally. Can you avoid the crushing like near miss of an interception, or can you turn that interception into points? I think is the big one there. You might have to return one. You really might have to return one here. Ole Miss is very well coached, especially with the X's and O's. You got to take advantage of those. If you have an opportunity, you got to take advantage of that turnover, and hopefully they do so.
Yeah, yeah, I'd agree. Swain has been quiet, and I haven't really seen anything like coached or sort of set up in a way to help him have the same success. So definitely see some of that. Definitely feels like we need another spark. It does feel cool. Like Sellers to Sellers kind of got them going a little bit. Is there somewhere else a little more of that? Feels like every time they hit Harbor, the team really responds to that. I obviously personally, I've been on Fuller a lot. I want to see more of him. I want to see him more involved. I'd love to see screens to him. Using some of our O-line in a creative way to get him some blockers, get a little freight train going along the sidelines, something like that. So that would just be a little bit of my 2 cents. But I like what you guys are saying. I did not know much about Chambliss, so it's good to have that. Obviously, we talked about Lane and his style. This team definitely brings that. Any other like key players or matchups we should keep an eye out for as X factors here to maybe help Gamecocks to get closer to the dub?
Right now, and I'll roll into my final prediction with this because I don't think that there's a key matchup here or there that's going to really alter how things are going to happen.
Yeah.
Because Ole Miss is coming off a bye week. They're not going to overlook us because they have the Citadel next week. So it's not like they are going to overlook our game. They're going to come off a bye week. We just finished playing Alabama, and then next week we got to go to A&M. So we're going to struggle. I do see us getting a couple of touchdowns with a little bit of the change up on offense, but Ole Miss is coming out firing. 34-14 Ole Miss. They cover. What's that? What was the over under?
Yeah, 54 and a half.
You're below. Yeah. You're at like 40.
So I'm below. So I'll take the under. 54. But
that's a little high.
34-14. My bold prediction. I would say Lenoris will have a chance to get 250 passing yards.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go fairly similar. I'm gonna go a little less. I'm gonna say 28-17 Ole Miss. I think we also get the 2 touchdowns, and we have one drive where we do kick because we're a little too far. But I think Ole Miss starts scoring touchdowns a lot and often to get to 28. I think they can sit on things by the end. If we don't get a return or something else on defense or special teams, it's going to be very hard to win. My bold prediction would be that Fuller moves to basically RB1, that he gets the most amount of touches. And And I'll go real bold and just say he has 100 yards. And just because I love my guy Fuller.
Nice.
I'm not a fan of the show, but he could star on Fuller House What do you got, Sammy?
It's going to be a scary one on how the day after Halloween. Look, this team is not even averaging as much as Chavez is throwing for every game. So we're going to get creamed. Lane Kiffin has Shane Beamer's number. You might as well call him daddy. This angry fan's calling it 34-6 Ole Miss, unfortunately. We're going to get pwned. We got to go to Texas A&M limping. That's what's going to happen, unfortunately. I'm sorry, boys. Going to be a long, long night on Saturday.
Yeah, with the hangover, the candy hangover. Well, we do
Yeah.
hope everyone has a great Halloween. We hope there are more treats than tricks. We'll fly around a whole bunch of emojis here for Halloween. I got my pumpkins. Buster's got his little ghosts. Angry fans probably got piles of shit more than likely, or whatever else is in that bag. Oh, red alert! We're back on a red alert. But look, we're not saying that it is that. We're not agreeing with the angry fan. We are Gamecock fans. We just know where this is. We would like to see improvements. If it's a close game, great. If we get a dub, oh my God, will we come in hard next week with you guys with a whole lot of candy? But in the meantime, it doesn't look that way. And you know what, fans? We really appreciate you sticking with us through this. Let us know what else you want to see on the program. Let us know where we got it right or wrong in our game. Let us know where we got it right or wrong with this matchup with Ole Miss. But as far as I can see, that's another episode of Alumni.
Oh.
Cox!
Game!
Cox!
Everybody have a good one. Enjoy Halloween.